Hi everyone, this is Mrs. Torigno and I am back with page 7 of your Geometry C Semester 1 exam review. This video will just cover questions 24 through 27 and they all have to do with this same situation where you have parallel lines that are crossed by a transversal. Okay? So question 24 gives us a diagram with some angles numbered. And I'm not sure if you can see the angle numbers here on this diagram, but you should be able to see it on your paper at home. The first question says, name 4 angles that are all congruent to one another. Well, remember we talked about in this situation, really the angles can be divided into 2 groups of angles that are all congruent to one another. Okay, so I should be able to pick one angle to start with and then just find the others that match up with it. For example, let's say I want to start with angle number 1. So I'll list angle 1. Now I want to look for angles that would be congruent to angle 1. And even though the question doesn't ask it, it's probably a good idea to kind of ask yourself as you go how you know that they're congruent. What types of angles are they that makes them congruent? For example, I would look next and see this angle 2 here. Angle 2 is corresponding with angle 1. So I know that that one is congruent. Then going back to angle 1, if I go directly across from it to angle 8, angles 1 and 8 are vertical angles, so I know that those have to be congruent. And then angle 1 and angle 5 are alternate exterior angles, so those ones are also congruent. Okay. And you'll notice that if I picked up these 4 angles and laid them on top of these 4 angles, that 1 and 8 would correspond with 2 and 5. That's how this situation works. It makes it actually really easy to figure out problems like this one. So those 4 angles would all be congruent to one another, 1, 2, 8, and 5. And actually, the ones that aren't circled are all congruent to each other as well. They're not congruent to these ones, but they're congruent to each other. So I'm just going to list those here so that you are aware that they could also be listed. You could have angle 3, angle 4, angle 6, and angle 7. So either one of those groups would be totally acceptable for this problem. Okay, question 25 wants to know how angles 4 and 5 are related. So here's angle 4, and here's angle 5. First thing I would look at is, are they interior or are they exterior? And remember we said to pretend that these parallel lines are like a hallway. So are the 4 and the 5 inside the hallway or outside? Hopefully you see that they're outside, so that means they are exterior. And then I want you to ask yourself, are they on the same side of the transversal or are they on different sides? Remember that transversal is like a brick wall running through our hallway. They are on the same side of that transversal. So I would call them same side exterior angles. If you find that you're having a hard time remembering all these different angle pairs that we talked about, refer back to that flip book that we made together during chapter 3. Same side exterior angles. Okay. On to question 26. 26 is giving you that angle 8, which is here, and angle 2, which is here, are congruent. And it wants to know what theorem would prove that these lines are parallel. So we talked about a whole slew of theorems in this chapter. And the first half of the theorems all had to do with if you knew the lines were parallel, then you know these angles are congruent. And then we talked about a bunch of theorems that were the converses of those theorems that we learned about at first. And the converses all said things like, if you know these angles are congruent, then you know the lines are parallel. So that's where we should be focusing our search, is in all of those theorems about parallel lines and congruent angles, all of the ones that are listed as converses of the original theorems, one of those is going to help us out.